Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 57th episode of the Inbox, starting off with Titan 98's question. Hey, I've just discovered this game, and because your channel is very helpful, you have a new subscriber. Thank you. And I was wondering if I was to play as a mercenary or bounty hunter, would that be possible? And what ship would be best? And I would like at least a team of 4. So yeah, a mercenary and bounty hunter is absolutely going to be one of the most popular, probably, jobs out there. You know, people want to go out there and fight and do exciting things. So yeah, that absolutely is a possibility. Now, as far as what ship would be best for that, focusing on the fact that you want to bring at least 4 people along with you, there's 2 that kind of jump out at me, maybe 3. The first one is actually a dedicated police/bounty hunter ship, and would do well in the mercenary type role, and that's going to be the Cutlass Blue. It's the basically militia variant of the Cutlass Black. Comes with more armor, comes with 8 holding cells, I believe. It's got some increased weaponry and shields. So overall, I think that would be a really interesting ship. It's got a seat for pilot, co-pilot, turret. It's got seats in the back, so you could just kind of bring a buddy along. So I think that's probably my number 1 option for you because it comes stock with those holding cells, which you'll need in a bounty hunter role. Past that, the other 2 that I would probably suggest would be the Redeemer. Redeemer has 2 turrets on it, has a pilot, has room for 6 Marines if you want to, and there's a possibility, and probably a strong possibility, of a module kind of area where the Marines currently sit, where you could probably end up adding holding cells. Otherwise, you could probably just disable somebody and stick them in one of those seats and then hold them hostage with another Marine standing there with a rifle. And then past that, Constellation Andromeda is proving to be a really versatile ship that I think could do pretty well. Again, it doesn't currently have holding cells, but you may have the option to put one in like the cargo area. Otherwise, it would basically be the same thing where you could just toss your target in the back, and you would be able to just kind of have Marines keep them at bay. But that would have 2 turrets, a pilot seat, 2 extra additional seats in the bridge, as well as the Merlin, which you could deploy out of the back for an additional support fighter. So those would be my recommendations for you, but Cutlass Blue would probably be my go-to. Cav Chippo says, hi STL, do passengers need to be seated or secured when using jump points? We don't know. We don't have jump points in the game yet, and we haven't heard a whole lot of details about this. I would say that no, they probably don't need to be because they're going to be in the physics grid inside of the ship. I think the only time you're going to really need to use seats is when you're flying in atmosphere, because then all of a sudden you're going to end up having the possibility of kind of bouncing around and inside of your ship. So I don't think so for jump points, but if anybody's seen anything differently, please feel free to chime in. Eben Bosman says, question, will CCUs ever work in the opposite direction, as in downgrade? Keep up the good work. Thanks for the great content. Thank you. So we just got confirmation today, and I'm recording this on Wednesday, on Ben's Day with Nikki D'Angelo, and actually one of my patrons asked the question, but basically, no. Unfortunately, we are not. And that was something we've been kind of waiting for because I think it helps a lot of people as far as flexibility. I know for me, I'm currently in kind of a battle with what I want to do with my fleet, and I would even be willing to pay, like a $5 penalty to be able to make a more expensive ship into a cheaper ship, or at least the credit. So unfortunately, Ben said no, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do that. So I think at this point, if you've got a ship that you want to move down, you either have to melt it or you have to wait until you can sell in the persistent universe. Dan Kylene says, my favorite series. Good. When do you think, if ever, we will be able to have Multicrew and Vandal Swarm in Battle Royale? I think we're all kind of hoping for sooner rather than later. It becomes a little bit more tricky when you start talking about the competitive nature of that. For example, today there are leaderboards, and if all of a sudden you're able to bring more people and more guns to the fight, it kind of screws that up a little bit. So what I'm hoping we get is like private matches or non-ranked matches that allow you to kind of do this sort of thing. Especially when we start talking about Vandal Swarm, that's really a cooperative, friendly type of game. You're not fighting each other. As far as the leaderboards go, I don't envision that being a significant, I don't think anybody really cares. Maybe I'm wrong. I couldn't see it. So I would envision that ranked games, probably not. Unranked games, I would like to see it added. Especially if we're talking about ships like the Vanguard or the Super Hornet or the Cutlass, ships that are currently flyable in the game that have a seat for a turret person. I think something like that would be really cool. Or just a harder version of Vandal Swarm or Pirate Swarm, where you're able to bring something like a Retaliator in, and you could have all 5 of the turrets manned. So I'm hoping so, but I haven't seen anything mentioned about this in a little while. Yebbit F says, hey Youngblood, I have a question about the Anvil Carrack. Will it be able to fit through medium-sized jump points? If the Freelancer is roughly the biggest ship that can fit through small jump points, what will be the biggest ship that can travel medium jump points? Thanks for all the great content. You are welcome. So this one again falls into the category of we don't know, but I think we can take some information that we know and kind of make some gameplay assumptions and say that I think it will fit through medium jump points. The reasons that I say that are primarily surrounding what the purpose of the ship is. We know the Carrack is supposed to be a Pathfinder type of ship, and it's supposed to be able to find new jump points and go through them and then actually be able to scan them and make it useful for others. Small jump points and medium jump points are the most common jump points out there. So if all of a sudden you're saying this ship can only go through large jump points and it can't fit through small or medium, then all of a sudden the utility and value of the ship being able to find that sort of thing becomes a lot less valuable. Unless it has some sort of probe, or you could maybe open a jump point and then send a probe through. But even then, it's kind of, going against what we think the ship is going to be. So I think it's going to go through medium jump points. I think the large jump points are going to really be restricted for the truly largest ships in the game. Things like the whole E, maybe like the Javelin, maybe like the Bengal. I think those are going to be the ones where you have to have like a truly massive ship to cause a problem. But I would say the Carrack is probably safe on a medium-sized jump point. Purely from a gameplay perspective, I think it would be counterintuitive to force it into the least common jump point size. Wild Dice says, hey Youngblood, great series, thank you. I have a question for you. Do you think that jump point scanning will be very useful? Jump points are a hot topic today. There will be around 100 systems in the persistent universe, and as far as I know, they do not intend to bring many more on in the beginning. There will be hundreds or even thousands of players with exploration vehicles scanning for jump points, and I'm afraid that there are not so many jump points to find at all. What do you think? Finding a new jump point isn't going to necessarily be a common occurrence, and when you're out, exploring, there's a lot of different things that you're going to need to do and want to do. So finding jump points is certainly one of them, but you're also going to want to be scanning, systems and asteroid fields and looking for derelicts and finding useful things. So you're not going to be limited to jump points, and they're really committed to making exploration interesting and profitable for people. That being said, the one thing that's going to really help you out is jump points are not static. They're going to stay in place for a while, but eventually they're going to fail, and at that point, you're going to need to find another one. So it could be, at some points a system has 5 jump points, other times it has 20 jump points. That's kind of a crazy number, but you get what I'm saying. It's not always going to be the same number of jump points. They're going to open up, they're going to collapse, they're going to lead to different places. So when you have that dynamic type of thing happening in the verse and it's impacting different systems, so you have 100 different systems with 5 to 10 jump points in each one, and those are all changing, it's going to happen more often than we think it's going to happen, and there's probably going to be some that are permanent and others that are not, but it's not going to necessarily be like after 2 weeks everybody's found every jump point. It's going to be a lot more detailed than that. The other piece of that is space is really big, and all the systems are supposed to be really big. So if you start talking about the size and scale, I think you're going to have people finding these sorts of things pretty frequently. It's just not going to be something you can expect to do every day as you're out flying around in your Carrack. And our last 2 questions are patron questions, starting out with one from Sketchy. It says, do you think the Idris M Railgun will be available and usable on the Idris P to expand by any other differences you think would be convertible or modular? So the Idris M Railgun was removed on the P because it's going to be able to make it a non-military version, and it adds in extra cargo. Now it has been confirmed that aftermarket kits are going to allow you to remove that cargo and add in a big mount, meaning you could put on a railgun or some other very large capital class weapon. So with that in mind, yes, you can make the P very similar to the M. Now, as far as other differences go, I mean, there's some differences with engines, I believe, and I think shields. So they're not necessarily, you're not going to make the P exactly the same as the Idris M, but they're going to be really damn close. And getting that big mount on there is going to be important. So I think for most people that have an Idris, they're buying it because they want to use it for combat. You're not buying it for the cargo. So with that in mind, most people are probably going to end up buying this aftermarket kit. Now, it's going to be expensive, I would assume, and the gun itself is going to be crazy expensive. The ammo is going to be expensive, but then again, you're not buying an Idris and using it, every single day. That's not what the ship is really for. So, if you can fund it, you can have it. And the last question is from Captain Griginski. It says, will we be able to join the military in the persistent universe? Building on that, if we've completed Squadron 42, do you think we'd be able to re-enlist at our previous rank? My understanding of this is no, the military is going to be a standalone piece of the business, or a piece of the game. You're not going to be able to join up in the military and just kind of play that role. So I think if you have an interest in doing that, you're probably better off actually, joining like a militia or some sort of organization that really features that. They may change that, but I think that's going to be something that's really kind of segregated. And then the military ends up being kind of this super big presence that we see in the universe, and sometimes is going to intervene in things that the players and NPCs are doing. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be like 30% of the military is actually real players. I think our military experience is really going to be limited to Squadron 42. So that's it for this episode of The Inbox. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you have questions about any of this, let me know. Otherwise, get your questions in. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.